What's up, sneaky people? It's your boy FB Kicks and Gear, and I am back with another legit check guide. And obviously we have the Jordan 1 Low Travis Scott Reverse Mocha, but this is a special video because at first I thought I was done doing comparisons on this shoe. I don't think there's anything that I haven't discussed or talked about when it comes to the rep for these, but this is a special review because this right here is a special rep. This is the PK 4.0 batch. For anyone who's interested in the space, the PK 4.0 batches of the Travis Scott Jordan 1s are making a lot of waves because they are accurate, or they're being marketed as being the most accurate with the authentic materials and all of that good stuff. So I had to get a pair, and I will be doing all of the PK 4.0 batches and doing legit check guides so that you guys can make sure that you know how to tell them apart. You'll be able to find pictures of all of these and other PK 4.0 batches on this Instagram account. So please, please, please study the images. Make sure you look at all the angles, all the details, because that will tell you whether or not you're looking at a rep. It's very important to know what the reps look like when you are legit checking. So please pay very close attention, guys, because this is supposed to be one of the top batches. So let's get into it. Obviously, we're going to talk about the shoes, but let's just do a very, 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 very quick breakdown of the boxes because I always do the boxes. So right from the jump, we have two different size boxes. I don't want to spend too much time here, but you can see that the Nike is a different color than on the authentic pair. It's more of a red brown on the rep, and it's more of a dark brown on the authentic pair. The boxes are two completely different sizes. The authentic pair comes in a much larger box. Looking at the labels, we have the authentic pair on the bottom, rep pair on the top. The labels look almost identical, but there are some font differences between the rep pair on the top and the authentic pair on the bottom. I would say that the text on the rep is just a slight bit wider than the text on the bottom, and you can see that most clearly, in my opinion, when you look at the Made in China text right there. This is the rep box, and then when you look at it on the authentic pair, it's a lot smaller and more compact and a lot daintier than the rep pair. But they both have RFID chips underneath the label, and you can kind of see it through the label itself. But they both have RFID chips. So box, in my opinion, is a pretty dead giveaway though. With all that said, let's get rid of the boxes and let's start looking at the shoes. So here we have it. We have the authentic pair here on the left, and we have the replica pair here on the right. The PK 4.0 batch, the batch that's supposed to be scaring a lot of people. So let's really take a look at the comparison and see if this is something to be afraid of. You know, when we're talking about Travis Scott 1 lows, predominantly when it comes to legit checking, we are looking for color, specifically on the reverse swoosh and the outsole and the midsole. Secondarily, we're looking at the color of the white leather because for whatever reason, I've seen reps in the past not actually have the white leather the same color. The reps usually have a grayish tint to them. We will pay attention to things like the color of the labels and the tags and where they're placed on the tongue. And as a secondary check, we'll take a look at the nubuck color, but I know that this tends to vary specifically because that's how nubuck is. But first things first, let's look at the shape. You guys know that I always like to point out the shape of the toe box, specifically from the profile view. You notice that in the profile view that the thickness of the toe box is mid-range, I would say, but most importantly, you see this feature where the toe box almost has like a bulge to it from the side profile. You can see it pretty well, but not just that. Pay attention to where and how far the leather comes up onto the toe box. Reps, bad reps, even good reps tend to bring this leather up too high on top of the toe box instead of having it kind of taper off towards the front of the top. Now, when we look at the rep right here, you can see that the rep definitely has the same bulging shape. I would say that possibly the toe boxes are a little bit thicker on the rep, but let's do a side by side so you can see. Actually, they're very similar in terms of build. The one thing I will say is that this rep does do that thing that the typical reps do, and it has the leather coming up a little bit higher up on the toe box than on the authentic pair. You can really see it from this angle. Where the toe boxes stop or where this leather creeps up, it's very minute. It's really hard to tell, but when you do get them side by side, you can see that the leather is pretty much sitting flat on the top of the toe box. Not something you want to see on authentic pairs for the most part, but other than that, the shape is pretty good. Taking a look at the back of the pair, height-wise, they look exactly the same. And generally, you start seeing a lot of shape differences on the back profile in terms of beefiness. The rep pairs tend to be wider than the authentic pair and taller as well, but they look identical from that back view. Now that we've talked about the toe box and the shape of it, the next thing that we want to pay attention to, very close attention to, is color. So I'm going to get one shoe versus the other shoe, and then I'm going to put them side by side so that we can see where the colors are going to start contrast. So here we have it, and immediately we can start seeing a little bit of differences when it comes to color. And this is why it's really, really important to have the authentic pair when you are authenticating, because sometimes this is the kind of stuff that you won't see or notice until you get them side by side. So look at here. First thing that I can see is that the reverse swoosh colors are different and the materials are slightly different as well. You can see that the authentic pair has a more yellow swoosh to it, reverse swoosh, and the rep definitely has a more pale off-white beige kind of swoosh, and you can see that side by side. And the material on this pair is interesting because while the leathers feel similar, the rep definitely has some kind of coating to it that just causes the material to wrinkle a different way. Almost like there's this top layer of something sealing the rep leather. Obviously, it's still tumbled, it's still going to flex and everything, it's going to wear the same way, but it's different. If you guys have any pairs of Jordan 3 white cements, it's a very similar kind of leather to this. It's hard to describe, but it feels like there's something on the top layer, while on the authentic pair, you're just feeling the raw leather. But you can see that. One thing that I'm very surprised to see is that the midsole colors are the same. Reps never get that right. And this is the first time that I feel like I'm seeing it, to the point where actually I think that the rep pair actually might have a slightly lighter midsole than the authentic pair, and you never see that ever. And you can see that color side by side. But when we look at the bottoms, it also looks like the outsole is the same color as well. And that's actually pretty surprising. Maybe the rep might have a little bit more of a red hue to it. Maybe, I don't know if it's the lighting, but this is the closest outsole that I've ever seen. And then when you take a look in the back, you can see the authentic pair on the left, the rep pair on the right. You can also see the slight color difference in the white leather. I know I pointed it out earlier in the video that the authentic pairs tend to have a brighter white, while the rep pairs tend to have almost like a grayish kind of white. The similar vibe is going on here. It's not as extravagant as I've seen on other reps, but definitely close, but it's different. You can see that the white leather is coming up almost darker on camera, and that's the way it looks like in real life as well. Going to the inside, you can see the comparison between the white leathers again. Looks like the white leather is the same type. It doesn't have that coating on the regular white leather that the other side has, or that layer on top. This is very, very, very similar to the authentic pair. They feel exactly the same, same thickness as well. And when you look at the cactus jack placement, it's a little bit different, still within the variation that you'd like to see on authentic pairs. You want to see that this stitch has some kind of engagement with that C on the cactus jack, like on the authentic pair. But most importantly, when it comes to this cactus jack, it is not bold. It is not super raised. That's something that reps struggle with a lot when it comes to the Cactus Jack text. One thing I will say that is the authentic pair has like a slightly more vibrant red, while the red here is a little bit duller, almost on the maroon side, but still pretty close. Pay attention to that, guys, because reps do struggle with that. If they do get the color right, they struggle with the boldness and the definition. So pay attention to that. That is a very good legit checking indicator. But you can also see comparison between the colors of the nubuck. The rep is definitely a little bit ashier. It's a little bit lighter, but completely within the range of retail. I've seen retail pairs look exactly like this, and there are probably some panels on my authentic pair here that look like this as well. Nubuck is just a transitionary material, meaning any kind of wear or abrasion or whatever can change the color. That's just the nature of it. But you can really see these side-by-sides are a really good way to see color differences, and you can see the slight color difference on the authentic pair. You can see it actually coming in a little bit darker than on the rep. I don't know if this is because of age, because I've had this pair for over a year now, but you could definitely see the differences here. PK 4.0 is the only batch that I have seen that has a lighter midsole, a correct color midsole. Never seen it. It used to be something that I pointed to. Always look for the darker midsole on the reps, but this doesn't have that. So please, please, please be careful. Pay attention to that. And you can kind of see the slight difference in the brown color of the outsole as well. From there, let's take a look at the tongue tags. You guys know that I have this trick that I like to look at when it comes to the tongue tags of Travis Scott Jordan 1 lows. I like to look at the placement of the Nike Air tag compared to the side Cactus Jack tag, and what you want to see is that the Nike Air tag is within about 2 stitches or less if you are looking at any size pair under size 11 and below. There is some variation. This is not a full set rule. What you don't want to see is a gap that's like 4 stitches, right, on a smaller size pair. For larger pairs, the gap gets wider pretty consistently, but on smaller pairs, what you don't want to see is a ton of space in between Nike Air tag and the Cactus Jack tag. But what I want to do when I compare these is most importantly compare the colors. The Nike Air on the authentic pair is slightly less vibrant than on the PK 4.0 batch, and same thing goes for the white in the background. It's definitely a lot brighter on the PK 4.0 batch for sure. The Cactus Jacks look virtually identical. I would say that possibly the background of the Cactus Jack tag here is a little bit more of a warmer beige color, while this is more of a cooler gray. Very slight differences, but still something you can pick up on. What's scary though is that the material color for the nylon tongue and the stitching are exactly the same. The borders for the tongues are exactly the same. We are approaching very dangerous territory here, guys. Very, very important that you have an authentic pair to reference, or you have a guide that you can look at when you're doing this kind of stuff. But when you transition to the inside, you can see that the sock liners are almost exactly the same color. Almost. It looks like there's a little bit more of a red hue or a maroonish kind of hue to the inside of this rep than the grayish kind of dull tone of the authentic pair. Very hard to see if they're not right next to each other though. When you pull out the insoles to compare side by side, you can see some slight color differences. The rep here on the right almost has like a greenish tint to it. The whites are coming off differently as well. Very bright, vibrant white on the authentic with very sharp defined borders, while the rep is not as vibrant of a white, and the borders of everything seem to be a little bit less defined and a little fuzzy. Same thing goes for the Air on the Wings logo on the forefoot right here, and the Jumpman as well. Turning them over, slightly different colors of blue, but the glue patterns are very similar, if not exactly the same. And the same thing applies to the other insole as well. From there, we take a look at the accessories. The brown laces are definitely a different color. You have the kind of ridge rock brown color of the authentic pair here on the brown lace, and this is just a traditional brown lace. Very different in color, very easy to spot. The brown lace should complement the rest of the brown hits all over the shoe. Clearly this stands out. This is a dark brown that it's actually not even a wax lace. This looks like it came from a Travis Scott Jordan 1 High. White laces are also different here. You can see that the reps have almost like a cream tone to them, while the authentic pair have almost a minty white. There's almost like a very, very slight mint green kind of hue to it. The red laces are also pretty different in my opinion. Very vibrant red. These almost don't look waxed at all, while the authentic pair has very waxed laces and a lighter, less vibrant red. Before I get into the Blacklight, I just want to do a quick kind of top down look with the rep on the right, authentic pair on the left. You can see how similar they look from this angle. You can see how the nubucks on the tongue look very, very, very close. They still have differences, but they look very, very, very close. With that said, let's take a look at the Blacklight test and see if we can find anything. Now, I haven't done a Blacklight test on this shoe in a very long time, so let's find out what reacts and what lights up. So the Nike Air tongue, very reactive. Side tongue, not as reactive as the Nike Air, very slightly reactive. Anything on the sides, nothing light up on the sides. Sole looks pretty reactive as well. You got some paint correction, that's normal. So nothing really lights up here. So my guess is if we look at the rep pair, the Nike Air is gonna light up, but we're gonna see possibly some guide marks and things like that. So let's pick it up. Very reactive on the tongue, just like everything else. So the reverse swoosh is very, very reactive on the rep pair, almost like it's 3M reflective, with the authentic pair not being reactive at all. Take a look at this, the rep pair on the top. That's different, and I think that has to do with that layer that I was talking about on top. But other than that, I don't think anything else is gonna react. Just the Nike Air, just like the authentic pair, and a slightly less reactive Cactus Jack side tag as well. Anything on the on the other one, still very, very reactive. This looks like it's coated in 3M actually. Other than that, everything else seems to be the same. So there we have it. We have the authentic reverse Mocha versus the PK 4.0. Now, if you ask me, this definitely stands up probably in the middle of the pack of the top tier reps. I think these are very, very legit checkable if you know what you're looking for. For this shoe in particular, you almost always need an authentic pair to be able to do this, because you have to see what the colors of an authentic pair look like, because that's the only way you're doing this comparison, or you're doing this legit check, is if you have an authentic pair to reference. Otherwise, how else are you going to know that this is the right shade of sale? How are you going to know? You wouldn't. How are you going to know that this is the right stitching, or that this is the right material, or that these laces are supposed to be a certain color? You wouldn't unless you had an authentic pair to compare them to. So that's very important. I still think they're very legit checkable, guys. So that's it. If you guys want to see more images of this, please go to the account right here and you will see as many detailed images as you need. The PK 4.0 line is pretty scary. I do have some others coming in that I feel are a lot closer to retail than these are, and I will be giving updates on those as well. Specifically the Travis Scott 1 highs, the fragment lows, the OG lows. Definitely it's going to be a very, very, very impactful legit check guide season. So with all that said, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.